Hey, welcome to Podcasting and Platforms. My name is Chris Spangle. Thank you so much for being with me today. And this is a quick one. I was just thinking about it. One thing you always want to do is kind of think about, I know what's in my head, and I know what I know. And if we're friends, we know together. But then there's people outside. Let's say you're A, I'm B. Well, there's C, who doesn't know anything about us and has never seen us, doesn't know what's going on. So I always try to think about C's perspective. You just run across podcasting and platforms, and you're like, well, I get what a podcast is, but what is a platform? Why'd you choose that word? Well, there's a couple nebulous terms that sort of, I don't know, they're catch-alls, like brands. What's a brand? I'm building the brand, right? Well, I don't know, a brand, or in this case, what's a platform? They're kind of terms that may not necessarily make sense. Like I can say I'm doing a radio show, and everybody knows what that means. What's a brand? What's a platform? They're kind of terms that kind of encapsulate the idea of something. I know that's kind of abstract, but you know what a podcast is. It has a very hard form to it. It is a piece of audio, an MP3 that goes into an RSS feed that then goes into a podcast app. That's what a podcast is. But that's even become nebulous. Is a podcast your mom's house on video on YouTube? You know, is a podcast, is the concept of a podcast not that MP3 that goes out in an RSS feed, but is it a show, a long-form talk show? Well, why not call it talk shows and platforms? You know, you may be watching this video on Instagram right now, on my Instagram, or on the Podcasting and Platforms LinkedIn page, or you may be watching it in the Facebook group. You're watching, is that a podcast, right? Like a podcast traditionally is just a piece of MP3 going through an RSS feed. Well, the platform is the term that I've chosen to represent kind of the all-encompassing project. Okay, so take podcasting and platforms. Well, there's this podcast that's in every podcast app, right? But it's also on YouTube. It's also on LinkedIn. It's on the website, podcastingandplatforms.com. It's on the Instagram. It's on Facebook, right? So it's bigger than just that piece of audio going through an RSS feed. It's an entire platform. It's got a brand. And the brand I define as the logo, you know, which is up here. If you're watching on the video, you got the little icon that has the RSS feed with the podcasting and platforms. And then I've got the really nice use of purple here. You know, that consistent brand color that I use, along with the consistency of, you know, I'm carrying that logo and the background with the abstract purple tiles on it. Like that's technically a brand. It's the visual representation of a project. And then the platform is the extensions of the podcast. I'm doing a podcast. I'm talking into a microphone with my headphones on, into my Rode Podcaster Pro. I am doing this predominantly as an audio piece of information. And then I've extended that podcast into a platform by putting the video on multiple different platforms, right? So the platform just means something that you are using to broadcast your message to other people, right? You'd roll out your wooden box, stand in the middle of a crowd, and yell, "Buy your war bonds here," right? In 1915. That was a platform. You know, if you're speaking in front of a large group of people at a conference, you're technically up on the dais on the platform that has been built to kind of inch you above the average person to expose you to a broader crowd. That's a platform. But I mean it digitally, not that physical wooden piece that you're standing on. I'm talking about the platform that you've built for yourself through the multiple channels of information that you're kind of distributing information from. So it's a catch-all term to mean the various tools that you use to share your podcast with. So I don't know if that makes it any clearer, but as you start your podcast and you're doing just that audio RSS feed, you're going to eventually want to add on social media channels and Facebook groups and all kinds of other different tentacles that come out of that piece of audio. And that's what I use for the term platform. And it's just not the podcast anymore. It's the full platform where you're building followers, to get attention, to kind of stand up about, in front of the crowd in a different way. So with that is what the term platform means to me in terms of digital content. So thank you so much for listening to Podcasting and Platforms. My name is Chris Spangle. You can find more at podcastingandplatforms.com. Sign up for a membership today. $25 a month gets you into our exclusive Slack group with a bunch of other podcasters, and you also will get to join in the monthly discussion that is basically a bonus show and kind of a hybrid show hangout for podcasters, as we're all going to swap notes and have a guided discussion. So check that out right now at podcastingandplatforms.com. Again, that's another platform. The Substack that takes your membership that allows you to get into the Slack channel. The Slack channel is not a podcast, so what are you going to call it? It's part of the platform, part of the brand. So thank you so much for joining us here on Podcasting and Platforms.